Hey, howdy, hey, everybody. Welcome to Disney Night Live. It's Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm joined with Skipper Jay. How's everybody doing tonight?
Aloha. Wow, Dave, just you and me in the clubhouse.
It is just you and me for a few minutes because tonight we have a very special guest. We are really honored and privileged to have Bob Weis with us. And for those of you who are not familiar, we're going to talk with Bob for about an hour tonight, and you'll get to know him as much as we do. But again, for those of you who don't know, Bob was an Imagineer for over 40 years with Disney. He was also president of Walt Disney Imagineering. He is an author, speaker, an architect.
I'm currently halfway through one of his books right now, and I want to take this material and make it into a movie.
Oh, well, we could talk to Bob offline about that, but we're going to bring Bob in. But real quick, we just want to get this out of the way up front. We want to talk about our sponsor, D-Magic World, because we do that always in the beginning of our show. And DMagicWorld.com is our 24/7 streaming Disney Music Magic station sponsor. And just like Disney, where the parks turn over from Halloween to Christmas overnight, it's crazy because I put on D-Magic World today and yesterday, and it is Christmas at D-Magic World. You're just hearing Christmas music, Christmas parades, getting you in the mood. So please check out DMagicWorld.com.
I have to applaud Jasper real quick because Jasper killed it this Halloween season. He did. The park music especially was on point, and it was from across the world. And yeah, man, I dug the Halloween music you played.
And the Christmas will be just as good as the Halloween. So please check out DMagicWorld.com. Don't forget to click on that Now That's Disney tab at the top of their homepage. Takes you right to our Facebook group, and request what you want to hear from their parks music. Again, one of my favorite things is always Tapestry of Nations.
I'm going to throw the gauntlet down and throw a couple obscure ones at Jasper. Really cool, obscure Christmas stuff. Holiday music for you to play.
So reach out to Jasper and let him know what you want to hear. But without further ado, we are going to bring in Robert Weis, again, our guest tonight. So everybody, please welcome in Bob Weis to Disney Night Live.
Hello.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Welcome.
Hi, David. Hi, Skipper Jay. Hi, everybody. Thanks to D-Magic Live for bringing us out. And it's so great to be with you guys.
We are so excited for you to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, we really are. We've got people saying hi in the comments. So hello to everybody tuning in.
Hi from LA, everybody.
I see people on Instagram Live. We've got Facebook and YouTube, but we've got about I say an hour with Bob tonight, and we're going to get into as much as we can about Bob's journey, his time with Disney Imagineering, and a lot of the projects that he worked on, as well as the books that Bob has written, and I guess maybe we can talk about that first. So you went from Disney Imagineer and other things to author. So what is that transition like?
Well, I feel so lucky. I had a chance to develop a book. I did a proposal to the Disney publishers, and to my surprise, they liked it, they supported it, and I feel so lucky. So many. I'm sure there's people listening out there who are authors who have written great stories, books, and it's tough to get out into the publishing world, and so I feel really, really lucky to have had the support of the Disney Publishing Group and another publisher that's published my second book already. I got 2 books out within a month of each other, and I just I love Imagineering. I love the years I've spent there, but I'll tell you, Jay and David, everything you do at Disney is very collaborative, right? So, but when I say collaborative, I might mean 75 people working on the same concept project, right? So writing is a very interesting, different take because it's you and a seat and a keyboard, right?
Just all on your own.
Yeah, but I've really discovered I love it. And if I was going to embark on a second career, I just can't imagine anything as much fun as this. And I just love it. And I've also just loved meeting up with people for book signings and talks. And so I feel really privileged to be able to have that opportunity at this stage in my career.
Right. And go ahead, Jay.
I was saying, both books are so totally different.
Right.
They're totally different. I'm very lucky. I got one big nonfiction book that came out from Disney. And it's kind of chronicles my ideas about how we all have dreams. I think, there's an expression we all use often, which is to follow your dreams. And as I got about halfway through the book, I started thinking, you don't really follow dreams. You have dreams. We all have dreams. Everybody on this call has had great ideas, dreams, that kind of thing. But your dreams kind of just keep moving. And if you really want to do them, you got to chase them. It isn't really just following them. It's chasing. They're way ahead of you all the time. So you have to chase them. You have to be dedicated. You have to be passionate. And in the case of things like big Disney projects, you have to be willing to bring a lot of people with you because you can't do these big projects by yourself. So you've got to chase them. You've got to be, you got to get a lot of people on board. Walt Disney once said that running the company was like walking 8 dogs. So if you could just imagine that image of just, dogs going everywhere, and you can't tell them all to go on a straight line. You're right. You have to kind of guide them. So I've loved that process, but I'm equally loving the idea of being able to write. We've got a couple more projects we can talk about later, but it's just really fun. It's a challenge. It's also, for someone 40 years in the design and storytelling business, it's kind of nice to have a completely new challenge too. So it's exciting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and we're live right now on Disney Night Live with Bob Weis. And we're talking about one of the 2 books that he's released. And this is called Dream Chasing.
And Dave, I have to tell you what I really liked about Dream Chasers was Bob, your message of you can do it. Anybody can do it. Anybody, anywhere across any field, just stick to it.
Well, and I found, Skipper Jay, that so many people who've come to signings have said they have an idea or they have a something they want to do, and nothing would make me happier than to be someone who encourages people to chase their own dreams and try things and be willing to it can feel a little risky, to yourself. Because we're always afraid. Everybody's afraid of failure, right? But you can't be afraid of failure. You have to just be willing to try stuff, and so I encourage people that way. A lot of people have encouraged me over even my, my editor and publisher at Disney, Wendy Lefkon. She encouraged me. I said, I don't know if I can write a book, and she said, well, you only have to write 250 pages. And I said, I can't imagine. The only thing I've written in the last 20 years is an email. So I can't even imagine 250 pages. And I ended up writing, 460 something, right? So once you get going, it's good. But it's great to have people encourage you. I want to encourage people as much as I can. And so Dream Chasing is a nonfiction book. It's not, I didn't set out to write an autobiography. I really set out to chronicle for a lot of the Disney fans that are on this broadcast and this call. I think you know this, but I wanted to kind of dramatize that these things don't just happen. They take an enormous amount of effort by a lot of people, and often they usually don't follow a straight line. They're usually all over the place. It starts starts someplace, ends up someplace
Right.
completely different than you thought, changes in the middle, gets put on hold, comes back in another form. And so I wanted to kind of dramatize that process for people. So you can't be frustrated when things kind of follow a circuitous process, because that's just what they do.
And it's great to see it that way, because a lot of people go, oh, it's made by magic. It's like, no, there are secretaries and offices working for people who are architects and engineers and people doing city planning,
writers,
many people.
Yeah, we often said there were more than 100. I think we said more than 150 different disciplines at Imagineering. So everything from writers to architects to ride engineers to stained glass experts to so many different disciplines, and you need them all. You need them all depending on what the project is. And your job is to keep them all kind of moving forward and moving kind of in the same direction, although you don't want to limit their talents either. So if somebody comes in and they have a good idea, you don't want to say, well, that's not exactly what we were thinking. You want to hear people out. So it's definitely a great group business.
Yeah. But what's it like to basically like rein in a bunch of tornadoes happening at once, all trying to make one tornado?
Putting it all.
I think that's a really good way to describe it, Jay, because it is a lot of tornadoes. And, when I'll tell you a little bit about Imagineering, a lot of you are experts in Imagineering, but Imagineering was founded by Walt himself. And it was because he had this idea that he wanted to do this thing that he ended up calling Disneyland, right? And he went to some experts, some architects, some designers, and they said, you know what you want to do, you can't really do. You have to create your own company to do it. And so Walt's natural inclination was to create a company out of animation, where he came from. So he brought together some of his most multi-talented Imagineers, and a lot of who they are, Claude Coates, and Exitencio, and so many great people. What he did was he set it up separate from the studio, but they brought a lot of the same ways of working with them. So one of the things animators have is they have these 4-foot by 8-foot boards back then. And you can put about a scene on one board. You can pin them all, all the different individual drawings for an animation scene. But if you have a small office, you don't have room for all these boards, especially if you're doing a whole Pirates of the Caribbean or Haunted Mansion or something like that.
Right.
And so your only recourse is to line these up in the hallways. And then anybody that walks by can walk up and say, hey, I think you missed a scene here, or I think you should think about this, or whatever. So we established what we ended up calling the hallway culture, and a very, very collaborative organization where anybody could walk up and give you a comment or give you a suggestion. And, a very open kind of collaborative environment. And that ethic, that chemistry still exists. Still the same way.
Still goes on to this day.
Yeah. It sounds like such a great way to work, because instead of people being negative, I imagine people coming in and going, I'm going to uplift here. I'm going to try to help you, make it better.
I'd say it's generally speaking a very constructive culture. One, two, I'd say people are not afraid to be argumentative either. They're not afraid to say, oh, well, I have a better idea than that, And that's one of the nice things about Imagineering, actually, is that it's a very flat company. It doesn't have a big hierarchy. So any person who is an engineer or an intern or an architect or whatever they might be can come in and make suggestions, and that's a positive thing. I think the best thing about creative teams and actually with Dream Chasing, the book, one of the things I wanted to do was to take some lessons that are sort of associated with Imagineering in the parks and make them available to other businesses and other businesses that are interested in creativity or managing creativity. But a lot of it comes from that. It comes from the idea that you have to be open. You have to listen to other people's comments. We all deal with large amounts of the public, and in the case of Disney, you deal with a public that is very dedicated to Disney. That is loves Disney. So you have to be open to other people's point of views, and you have to be willing to not to defend your point of view, but to have dialogue about it. Right? It's fun. Right. It's the fun part.
Right. My wife Kim, who's a first grade teacher here in New Jersey, says, well, first of all, she says, "Hello, Mr. Weiss." She says, "I would love to write a book. I'd love to write a book about raising a child with autism." So our son, who's 15, Colton, is on the spectrum. She said, "What's your advice to start?" So is it just get your thoughts out and then try to arrange them, or how would you go?
I have a feeling, I don't have any doubt actually that you're both great parents, and so I'd start there. I'd start with
they are.
I'd start with your parenting and what you've done and how because you didn't have any. I'm guessing now, David and Kim, that nobody gave you a handbook that said, okay, here's how you raise a child, right? You learned it. You learned it.
Yeah.
You've probably read Ron Suskind's beautiful book about. Have you read Ron Suskind's book?
I have not, but my wife basically didn't sleep for years. She just read book after book after book.
Well, Ron Suskind was the one who wrote this great book about how his son didn't speak for most of his youth, and it was when he started watching Disney movies that he suddenly started talking and speaking lyrics and lines from the movies. And so they realized, well, that's how we're going to reach him, is through these great movie lines and things like that. But I think if you have that experience, what I found from writing a book is it's the number one thing I think they say about writing a book is it's putting your butt in the chair and writing it, right?
Dedicating the time, right?
Yep.
It's finding the time to sit down, and it's not one book, it's over and over again. But it's in your case, I think it would be similar to mine. Your situation is very different, of course, but it's pouring your heart out in some organized fashion to try to make a relatable story. And I'm sure in your case there are many, many people, so many people who can relate to your experience, and you can create that book that you were looking for when you were looking for advice. So those are great points too. And I think also because of our experience of going to Walt Disney World, so many times with our son too, the help that I think people need navigating the parks with a disability, as well as, now, especially with the changes of the DAS pass. So maybe that would also be, even just a chapter in the book, but I think there's a lot of great ideas. She said in the comments, "I'm inspired and I'm going to start." Thank you. Okay. I'll tell you, it's not, it sounds hard, but I discovered in writing dream chasing, and everybody's different, but I discovered that if I wrote about 2 hours each day, and I was still working in Imagineering when I started dream chasing, but I would shut my phone off, shut the Wi-Fi off on the computer, shut everything off so you don't get any notifications, no interruptions, and sit and try to write solid for 2 hours. And it's sometimes you think, I don't have anything to write, but you will write. And if you do it every day, you will write a lot. But I found for me, it was better to write for 2 hours every day, 7 days a week, than to say, well, I skipped 3 days, so I'm going to write, 9 hours on Saturday or whatever. It's much better to figure out what works for you. And I remembered, I first said, well, I got to clean up my office. I got to close the door. Nobody can interrupt me. It's got to be totally quiet and all that stuff. And then I remembered reading about J.K. Rowling when she was writing Harry Potter. and she had a child in a stroller, and she was in Starbucks, and there was noise everywhere, and she still wrote it. So I don't think we have any excuse not to write anywhere, right? So
yeah, if she could do that, then yeah.
do that. So now I write with my son, my daughter, my wife, cooking, my daughter doing acrobatics. I can write anywhere, really.
Yeah, I mean, you
find
your niche.
I can write on a plane. I can write in the airport. I can, So find what works for you, but you do have to. It is a lot of volume of material that you have to write. Then you have to rewrite it. Then you have to edit it. Then an editor is going to want to edit it, and so it's a lot of volume of stuff. So you have to have some amount of discipline to it.
Right. And so you mentioned that, both books, Dream Chasing and Ghost Dog, which is also out. These are both out a couple months apart from each other. So
yeah, Ghost Dog just came out, and Ghost Dog was actually first in my writing. I don't know if you have any. Maybe we'll get some messages. I'm hoping out there somewhere are some Haunted Mansion fans.
One of them's here tonight with you.
I am a giant Haunted Mansion fan, and I used to have, when I was Imagineering, my office was next to Existencios. I knew Claude Coates.
Wow.
And I grew up at the Haunted Mansion. I always thought, well, you're never going to do anything as good as the Haunted Mansion. It's just too good. It's just those guys and women. They were all amazing talents, and the storytelling is great. And they didn't have any of the tools. They didn't have Xerox machines or computers or,
technology we have now.
Yeah, they told an unbelievable story, and so I said, well, I can't do that again. They already did it. So, but what I could do is maybe I could write a story about it. So I came up with this idea because I love dogs too.
Right.
And I've had a lot of great dogs in my life. And the idea was very simple. It was a kid loses his dog, like we all have as kids. We
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking as an adult. And that moment at the end of the Haunted Mansion where you're going by that last scene, and they say, and a ghost will follow you home. And I said, well, what if a ghost dog followed him home? And that's it. That's the idea. And so they go to the Haunted Mansion. A ghost dog follows them home. And it's really about this family who have a dog that is a ghost. And what happens to them? And it's I think a very fun fiction book. And I reached out to George Scribner, who is a wonderful artist. He directed Oliver and Company years back at Disney. He's great with dogs. He's great with anything, but he's great with dogs. And he did about 35 illustrations for the book. It's kind of a young adult, sort of, Harry Potter age, I'd say. It's anytime after maybe 6 or so, but it's a fun story, I hope. And it takes place in the Haunted Mansion, outside the Haunted Mansion, at their house. They go on an adventure to find out where this ghost dog came from. They go to Imagineering. It's quite a little adventure. So I hope your folks will check it out. We just had a really fun time. I've been doing lots of book signings for Dream Chasing, and I said, what I really wish I could do for Ghost Dog is have a book signing for dogs.
Right. I saw that online. That was great.
I just want to sign books for dogs. So we reached out here to the Pasadena Humane Society, and they were doing an event just before Halloween, and they had just hundreds and hundreds of dogs in costume.
Oh, great.
So we signed books all day for dogs, and it was just awesome. It was just, and people who love dogs, people love animals, of course, but people who love dogs, they're a breed in themselves, right? And so it was great. We got to meet a lot of dogs, a lot of dog owners. And so I'm hoping that Old Mill Press, which is a wonderful, wonderful husband and wife team that published Boutique, Dave Bossert did a beautiful book on the House of the Future at Disneyland. They did a beautiful book on Claude Coates. They got Ghost Dog when they first read it. And so I love working with them also.
Yeah. It's a fun story, and so Cindy, who's watching, said, "I can't wait to buy and read both of these books." So she's
Thank you so much.
inspired, and our friend and viewer T9 says, "Who doesn't love Haunted Mansion?" So,
Well, I got two great comments that are on the back cover of Ghost Dog. One is from Leslie Iwerks, who produced the Imagineering story.
right.
A lot of your audience will know. And the other was from Kevin Feige, who loved the story and loves Disneyland, head of the Marvel universe. So those two, and then it's so great. It's so gratifying to have these two books out. I can't describe to you how privileged I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, and to have Leslie and Kevin. So I have I took a snapshot. So this is from Kevin Feige, again, president Marvel Studios. Bob Weiss's Ghost Dog is a fun, page-turning adventure inspired by the Haunted Mansion that's sure to bring the magic of the parks into your home. Disneyland has been a giant source of inspiration for many generations of artists and storytellers, including myself. Its influence radiates through the story. So that's from Kevin.
And how can you imagine I sent the book to him, and then imagine when I got that email back, how I felt when I got that amazing email, right? It's just like, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty amazing, because Marvel fans, when they hear his name, they freak out, kind of like.
Right. But he is a big Disney, obviously a big Disney fan, but he loves the parks. He loves the classic parks too. I was the original designer, you may know, on the Disney MGM, what we called at the time Disney MGM, now called Disney Hollywood Studios in Orlando. And Kevin told me that his parents took him down there, and he was there going down Hollywood Boulevard and the Chinese Theater and all that stuff. And that's when he decided he wanted to be a filmmaker. So, So I take total credit for the Marvel Cinematic Universe because we inspired Kevin. But Kevin inspires us every day.
I think maybe he should do an episode about that.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, that would be a great story. I mean, and who's not inspired walking down, the boulevard at now Hollywood Studios? But so, I mean, I call myself a Disney fan, but I didn't know this. Jay is an even bigger Disney fan. But in watching some of your past interviews and videos and podcasts, that MGM is really developed because of Epcot and wanting to bring entertainment. Michael Eisner wanted to bring entertainment to Epcot, and it spawned MGM. So can you kind of guide us through how that happened?
Yeah, originally it was in the early days of Michael Eisner and Frank Wells coming into Disney, and they had gone down to Florida, gotten a tour, all that in their literally the early days of their tenure. And Michael came back saying, I think we need a pavilion based on the entertainment business. You have energy and transportation and, food and farming and all these things. The entertainment business is a giant business. And I don't think we necessarily saw it that way at that time, at least the way that Michael was seeing it. Today you do, because today you think about these huge, diverse companies that are into, online streaming and retail and so many different things. But back then it was kind of a focused business on either like television or film or animation or music, radio. There was no internet at that time. So it was an interesting thing to try to think about what would an Epcot pavilion be based on the entertainment business. And I just happened to be, I was a young Imagineer. I had just spent 2.5 years in Tokyo, building Tokyo Disneyland. I happened to literally be in the right place at the right time. And they said, okay, can you get a group together and we'll figure out what this entertainment pavilion Michael wants. And we came up with an idea for a pavilion that would have the early stages of what would eventually become the Great Movie Ride, a television experience, a music and sound experience, in a kind of a large pavilion. And then little by little, the enthusiasm of the company and Michael's enthusiasm, because he came out of the entertainment world, grew. And he said, well, why don't we build some stages next to Epcot, a small studio next to Epcot, and people could go to the pavilion and they could tour the stages. Little by little, this thing was becoming bigger than a pavilion.
Those storyboards are getting, they're taking up more and more room, right?
Yeah, so, and he had a lot of enthusiasm for it. So very quickly, it became Disney MGM Studios, meaning it became the third park for Walt Disney World on its own site. But it started out quite small. It was going to be maybe a smaller park than the other two. It was going to be something that maybe people would do the first day they arrived. If they had flown in that day or driven in that day, maybe they could do a half day park or whatever the day they're going to leave. But we kept generating ideas. Michael kept having more enthusiasm. So it was a half day park kind of in the early stages. But by the time it opened, it was, the demand was there. We did almost double the design attendance in the first year. And luckily we already had started to add Star Tours. So it grew really fast. We added, Muppets, we added Tower of Terror, Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Now it has Star Wars Galactic's Edge and Toy Story Playland, and so many different things in it. So now it's kind of a worthy complement to. It's clearly not as big as Epcot or Animal Kingdom, but from a program point of view, it's now a full day park. So
definitely.
But it didn't start that way. It started as a little kind of almost like a showcase park, but it grew pretty fast.
I like how Hollywood Studios, just the way it runs and the way you can get from one place to another. I find it's very easy to navigate, and I know that that's part of the storytelling. And I love the fact, to me, Hollywood Studios is the easiest to kind of navigate and get through it. I love the direction.
Pretty compact. So it's on a compact site.
Right.
No, it doesn't take hours and hours of walking. It's now it has so many different things in it. When we first started, it was relatively small. We had the backstage tour, we had the animation tour, we had the Great Movie Ride, a few other things. I'm really glad to see it grow into its own. And there's things that are gone that were there before, like the Great Movie Ride, which is now Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Right.
I grew up saying that. But I always remind people, Walt Disney himself, in just the 10 years that he was alive after the opening of Disneyland, he renovated it constantly. And so I love the fact that we had certain things there, and it's fine with me that they've been updated too. I love, I love the fact that Hollywood Boulevard is still there as a kind of an experience, sort of like our version of Main Street,
Right.
But it was fun to do, and it was done very. It was Michael's first park, and then very quickly as we were working on that, they embarked on Disneyland Paris too. But it was his first park, and it's I know from talking to him even recently, it's a very special thing to him that we did that, and special to all of us. All these parks are.
Yeah. I mean, so Great Movie Ride was and still is my favorite of all the Disney attractions. I just loved it, and not that I don't like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I think it's a great compliment to it, but for me, that was MGM. That was nostalgia. The end scene with all the movie clips coming at you, was just a great finale. So I missed it, but I understand it.
I miss it too, and I was watching the Academy Awards, and this little film came on. It was only a couple minutes long, and it was I think it won the Academy Award for short subject. It was called Precious Images, and it was by a film director named Chuck Workman. And Chuck had done dozens and dozens of compilation films for the Academy Awards. He always did these, like when it was the best actor time or the best picture, he put all those great compilations together back in the old days. And he built this film that was kind of from Charlie Chaplin all the way to today in a couple minutes. And I reached out to Chuck and said, hey, we're doing this crazy project in Florida. Would you consider doing a panoramic version of Precious Images? Give us, we have like 2.5 minutes to do the history of cinema.
Nothing hard to do. Yeah,
nothing hard. Yeah, and he was great. He was great. But I think the other thing that was very meaningful to me about actually all of Disney MGM, it still is, but also especially a great movie ride, is we had this idea that our cast is so great, our cast members are so fantastic, that we could use them in the show. And we did it in the Great Movie Ride. We had them play gangsters and play, bandits. We used them in, the backstage tour, in the Superstar television show. It was a really unique park in that the cast members really were a big part of the experience. And I think it's, in some ways a precursor to the way the cast is used in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because they all have profiles, they all have histories. It's you never can do enough with our cast. The cast is just so dedicated. They're so amazing, all of them. And so when I think about, I was there for the 35th anniversary last year, and met with a lot of the cast that had been there since the park opened, including cast of the Indiana Jones stunt show, the cast of the Primetime Cafe, all those moms and dads, and they're so dedicated. It's amazing. And it just became part of the style of Disney Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, they help make the magic. They're part of the story.
They really do bring it to life. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That whole park, because there's and I find that there more than I think across the board is these customers really want to play those parts every time I'm on Tower or any of them. They're into the part they're playing like they're supposed to be.
Well, it goes back, as I don't have to tell you, Jay. It goes back to Jungle Cruise, where the cast is everything, right? The cast is the whole thing. And so we wanted to bring that to life, and I'm glad we did. And I'm glad that we have the new stuff, but I'm also glad we had the great classic stuff that was there before too.
Yeah,
right. I guess my next question is still like, so Michael Eisner, in my opinion, in watching a lot of Disney Plus behind the attraction or footage and hearing him talk, I think he gets a bad rap because a lot of people will say negative things about him, but I think that so many ideas came out underneath Michael's leadership, and it just flourished.
He was willing to take big, bold chances,
big risks, right?
I mean, remember Disney Mobile,
right?
I mean, if you think about it, the company, consisted, when he and Frank Wells came in, it was Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and Disneyland. That was it. And so here we launched Florida, so many resorts, Animal Kingdom, Disney MGM, Paris, Hong Kong. It just, he had a love. He still has. I shouldn't say past tense. He had a tremendous love for the brand and for the stories. If you think about the renaissance of Disney animation, of film and television. So I think if you think about Imagineers, we were founded by Walt Disney as his, it was originally the name of Imagineering was WED, which is for his initials, Naturalized Disney.
Right.
So we were the personal creative R&D company to Walt Disney. that's really that's what we were then. And for me, coming in just the 40 years of my time span, I saw Roy Disney, Ron Miller, Michael Eisner, Frank Wells, Bob Iger, Bob Chapek, that, they all saw Imagineering as a unique asset. And they all launched interesting, compelling menus of projects. And we were always, incredibly lucky to be able to have quality time with them, quality time with Michael. Well, incredible. I had incredible quality time with Bob Iger on Shanghai Disneyland.
You kind of kidnapped him for a day, right?
We kidnapped him for a couple of years. But yes, for a day, but we kidnapped him for a couple of years on that project. And he when you're in the thick of something and it's hard, it's great to know that the chairman has invested time with you and understands how hard it is and understands the difficulty of it. And so that is the unique position of Imagineering, is that we serve the guests. We definitely serve our partners in the parks, but we also serve typically the CEO of the company. And so it's a really important and it can be a difficult position too, right? Because you're trying to look between, like, I want to serve the guests, but I also want to serve, the business interests, but I also want to serve the company's interests, right?
So a lot of different moving parts to make happy and deal with at one time, but it is extremely important.
There's a lot of difficult moving parts, but I think typically, if you think about a big risk like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge or Pandora, these big pirates in Shanghai, these things that are kind of like you're betting a lot on, is this a good idea or not? Especially back before, even I'd say the first time that I ever saw a full 3D animated walkthrough of an attraction was Radiator Springs Racers. So you figure everything before that, you're relying on models, drawings, sketches, storyboards, things like that. We didn't have that sophistication before. So everybody's having to kind of hold hands and say, okay, are we going to do this?
Yeah.
We're going to make it happen. It takes some boldness.
And seeing it to fruition, I've heard you say before in some interviews that, Imagineering and these projects are not like, the release of a movie. This is something that's going to be in place for a long time. This is not an opening box office weekend. It doesn't just go away.
This is a show that has to play all day, every day, in some cases for decades and decades.
Which I think what you're both saying really is that's where Walt started. I think is that animation. He made the movie and he released it. And from then on, that is the movie, right? That is the movie from then on. He realized in building Disneyland that he had something. The famous quote that Disneyland will never be finished, right? That he could change and mold, and he could change. One of the great things he told his first generation of Imagineers was, he told them all to go to Disneyland. He said, once a week, go to Disneyland and just sit on a bench and watch the audience. Just watch what they do and watch how they act. So I think that parks as a medium of storytelling have always been living. That's why the cast is so important. That's why the changes are so important. That's why the dynamics of people are so important. And also cultures, that Disneyland is very different it is in Shanghai than it is in Hong Kong or Paris or Florida. The culture where the park is conceived, built, constantly refreshed and who's going there. They have, they're part of the guest is a part of the storytelling, right? So it's there's nothing else like it really when you think about it.
Yeah. Is that why certain projects work at certain parks, like international parks versus American parks, where sometimes when announcements are made, say at D23, or there's going to be a new ride or a new attraction, people will complain and say, well, how come we're not getting that? But some things just seem to work at, I guess, because of a cultural difference, or may work better in one park.
I think it's more, I think it's a combination of that, but it also is, what does that park need at that time, right? We don't treat the parks as a collective. We treat them as individual parks. And so you look at, when we went over and looked at the second park, the Disney Hollywood Studios in Paris, and sitting right next to most beautiful park, the system, Disneyland Paris,
which I will say, having been there, is the most beautiful theme park in.
Right, it's beautiful. Have you been to Shanghai?
Not yet.
Okay,
not yet.
Beautiful too.
Yeah. Paris is perfect.
It's perfect. But Shanghai is quite beautiful too. But I mean, they're all beautiful in their own way. But the point being that Disney Hollywood Studios, we said we have a lot of upside potential here to build a lot more. And this idea, we were kind of evolving away from the idea of backstage, because backstage really worked when we first opened the studio tour. But then over time, it's like, people are kind of used to seeing backstage back then on DVDs, now, in so many different mediums.
Right.
So in Tokyo, we decided to do Tokyo DisneySea. We didn't do anything that was backstage there, because the audience, Oriental Land Company, felt like this is an audience that believes in Disney magic. They don't want to know how it's done or see you behind the scenes. So each park, we kind of evaluate it on the basis of what it needs at that time. And so when we were looking at Hong Kong and Disney Hollywood Studios Paris, for instance, at the same time, and Frozen was so huge, we said, well, here's our opportunity to do a big Frozen, Enchanted Land, and do two of them basically in the same time frame, one in Hong Kong and one in Paris. So it wasn't that we left out the U.S. parks; it was just that those parks were a priority at that time.
At that time, right?
At that time, and it wasn't just because they're outside the U.S. It just was where the priority was. We had an opportunity to really increase the footprint and the storytelling value of Disney California Adventure, and we wanted to do something major with Cars Land. So the two ideas came together, and it was like, here's your opportunity to do something really big. It has to do with the Southwest, of the U.S. We could do Radiator Springs Racers and the whole Cars Land thing. Right. It would fit in with the rest of California Adventure. It isn't that we wouldn't do Cars Land someplace else. It was that at that moment in time, in that park, at that time, it was perfect. So, okay, we could do that again someplace. But each park is a separate set of decisions, creatively, business-wise, everything.
Right, and also what's in at that time, right? Yeah,
what's in it at that time?
Yeah.
That's
we had a test track in Epcot, and we took the test track ride system, basically the cars that we had done with GM with the high speed race there, and we borrowed that and used it as a basis from which to do Radiator Springs Racers.
Right.
And so not that you can't do more than one ride with one ride system, but they're all different decisions.
It's so fun to watch you, but take that same technology and then turn that into a completely different story with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was, it was interesting to work on DCA in general, but in Radiator Springs Racers specifically, was that difficult to have those cars at test track running on a roadbed with real rubber tires, because those are getting like, I don't know what it is, 50 times the use or 100 times the use that you get with your car on a road,
right?
Because they're running 18 hours a day at high speed.
At very high speed, yeah.
And so it's a very high cost to keep that attraction running. And so there was some exploration back in the beginning of Radiator Springs. Could we do it without the tires touching the ground? But we just basically said, it's cars. They're cars, right?
Yeah, we need to see the rotation.
Right? Yeah. Well, not to see the rotation, but feel the roadbed, right? You have to feel that you're racing. You have to feel that you're gaining on somebody. Tower of Terror, Twilight Zone Tower of Terror was a similar situation where we wanted people to have that fear that we were describing to each other. That is, okay, what's the scariest thing you could imagine in an old hotel? Well, the elevator breaks and falls. And to do that, we discovered from lots of different tests and stuff like that just falling at the rate of gravity wasn't enough. It was kind of okay, but it wasn't enough. And so we actually ended up pulling the vehicle faster than the rate of gravity. And then it's like, okay, all you have to do is pull this thing at faster than the rate of gravity for about 3 seconds, and then hope you can stop it at the bottom. that becomes the specification for the ride system. Right. But that feeling, but you're telling a story, obviously, of the Twilight Zone and all that stuff. But you're also saying, okay, I want to sit here and I want the bottom to just fall out. Right. I just want to feel myself. And so if you can do that well, or that first moment of Pandora where you dive over the creature, just is a flying creature and takes you over the top of the hill, right? If you can get those moments, they become moments that people remember, they return to. Yeah. They want to do it again and again. And that's the difference. There's lots of compromises you could make along the way. But
that's what makes Tower one of the most perfect rides Disney's ever made. It's an architectural marvel when you break it down, how it works, how it operates, how they went into making this, and then telling a Twilight Zone story on top of it. This is what I go to the parks for over and over and over.
And it was fun. And it went through, I can't tell you how many evolutions I wrote. Well, I can tell you, it's in the book. I wrote about the different evolutions that it went through and the different ways we tried to figure out how to do it. But there again, we had an opportunity with a park that was successful, had high audience acceptance, but didn't have enough capacity. We needed more things to do. And so you have this kind of golden moment that says, okay, here's your chance to do a new kind of thrill ride, relates to Hollywood somehow. They're all different decisions.
It's perfect. It's perfectly located, and it's just the first time we rode that a couple years ago with our son. He says he's never going back on it. The feeling of coming out of your seat. He's like, that was great, but I'm never doing it again.
Yeah, I did that so many times when we were programming it, and I would sit there with a little clipboard with notes and. It would fall again. It's like and now I can barely ride it. Now it's
my dream job would have been your assistant at that time. Be like, let me hold the clipboard and tell me what.
I'll write it for you, Bob.
I'll write it all day long.
You're sort of passe when you're doing it, right? But then years later, when you get back on it, you realize, wow, they really let us do this. That's amazing.
That's the experience, right?
Yeah.
Our audience
it is amazing.
I have to stop talking about that one particular ride, or I will not stop talking the whole episode.
I don't think there's an episode where we don't talk about either Tower or Haunted Mansion. I think it may come up.
I drop Tower into every episode.
I'll do my ad. Dream Chasing has a lot about Tower of Terror. It has a lot about Shanghai. It has a lot about the founding of Disney MGM. so many different things, and they're all case studies in how these things get done and the incredible people that work on them. And then, of course, Ghost Dog is my little fantasy story about what could happen if a haunted mansion ghost followed you home. So,
which I didn't realize when you were just got talking, my mic had been muted for like 6 or 7 minutes. I have Ghost Dog on my Kindle right now.
Yeah.
I was telling Dave, this is not only do I love this because I'm a dog person. We've just gone from losing a dog to getting a dog.
Yeah, it's a haunted mansion plus dogs plus. By the way,
this book
I don't think I can show it here. The cover glows in the dark.
Right.
This is, I think, a great book for especially kids. With that first animal,
it's such an emotional thing.
Yeah, I'm about 60 pages in, and I want to.
Well, you won't be able to see it on Kindle, but if for anyone that gets the book, put it in the sun for a little while, and then put it in a dark room at night, and it glows in the dark.
The cover and spine both glow in the dark. Right.
I'm reading this, and I was telling Dave before the show, this is material that someone needs to make a movie of.
It would be a lot of fun.
It would be like this. I was like, this needs to be on Disney Plus or some kind of service, but this is material that I was like, this needs to be made into a movie.
Okay, write in. Everybody write in. Everybody that reads it, write in if you feel that way. That's awesome.
And Cindy just said, what a fantastic show tonight. I learned so much. Can't wait to read my new books. And so we're all animal lovers. So we have a rescue dog and 2 rescue cats. Jay has a rescue dog.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's kind of perfect. It's perfect for us.
Well, I grew up in a pet household, and I've had pets my whole life, and I've had multiple dogs. And I don't have one now because we put our last dog down. But the writing of the book was, for me, in many ways, trying to express just how much we all love the Haunted Mansion, and and also how much we love dogs. It's just,
it's something. It's something that I'm feeling as I'm reading it, because Dave will tell you I go head over heels for my dogs, and so it's someone who's like, I hated Cruella up until Emma Stone. That's how much of a dog person I am. It took Emma Stone for me to like that character.
Yeah, I tried to use my experience with dogs to I'm able to express how they behave, just to kind of capture their unique behavior.
But there's also that sense of, as I'm reading it, that yes, I've loved and lost, but that's what you do with a dog. And
that's the way it is.
And that's so is I'm loving this. And
it makes room for a new soul in your home.
It does.
It's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah.
We're kind of wrapping up here with Bob Weis, who again is an author, speaker, former president of Walt Disney Imagineering, and just I feel like I could have did 10 more hours with Bob, and I'm sure Jay.
That's not fair on Bob or I, Dave.
Yeah, Jay sees me every weekend, man. I don't think Bob wants 10 hours with me.
Well, Jay and David, it's such a privilege to be on with you and all your audience. They all know how to find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear, especially for people who read Dream Chasing, I'd love to hear about their dreams, what they want to do, and if the book had a positive influence on their own ideas. If you love Haunted Mansion, love dogs, I'd love to hear about that. I'm so appreciative of you guys and of the audience, the Disney audience, for having the opportunity to reach out.
You are always welcome. Anytime.
Oh, we'll do it again.
Please.
Well, we got another book. We got another book coming. We got a massive book coming out based on a massive archive of Marty Sklar, who ran WDI for 50 years. It's probably another year before that book comes out, but that'll be the next book coming out.
Right. So we can expect that, and that's one of the final questions I wanted to ask you. So, my wife Kim said, can't wait to get both the books. But yeah, so this is going to take about another year to finish, but it is going to be a lot of detail and information about Marty's collection.
It's a massive collection of something like 2 million documents that he collected.
Oh, wow.
That have not been seen by the public, and were never a part of the Disney archives. Are now being all documented, scanned, all that. and it's going to be the first book ever about that collection. So watch for that too. Probably about another year.
Right.
Oh, I already want it. I want to just
a huge. It's a big like a huge collection.
That is something I'm dying to read.
It's going to be amazing. And where can our audience and other people, and we'll put the links as well when we put this show out as an audio podcast. But where can they currently find Dream Chasing as well as Ghost Dog? Where are those books available?
Both books are under my name, Bob Weis, Weis, on Amazon. If they want to go there, they're on Amazon. There's an author site there. There's also an email link if they want to send me a note. They're also in. I know Dream Chasing is in Barnes and Nobles and bookstores around the country. So is Ghost Dog. But I think probably most of your viewers order from Amazon or somewhere, but they're readily available there. And the audiobook for Dream Chasing, which I read, all 14 hours of it is coming out in about a month. And the audiobook for Ghost Dog is coming out too. So they're both coming out. Wow. They'll both be out by the end of the year.
We are going to have to share links on our page for that because
and again, when we put the podcast out, we'll put links for the where to get
both of the audiobooks will be on the same. If you use Amazon or any one of those book sites, the audio links will for audible.com and the other things will be in the same place.
We are lucky again enough tonight to have had Bob Weis as our guest again. Former president of Walt Disney Imagineering, over 40 years of time with Imagineering,
I would love it if you came back because I have like pages of stuff I wanted to talk to you about.
We'll have to put those aside for.
We'll do a chat. We'll do another chat.
Awesome.
We can. And I want to say
when the audiobooks come out, we'll do another chat.
Definitely.
And again, audience firsthand, cannot recommend a Ghost Dog enough. I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much, Jay. And
David,
thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, Bob. We're going to do an outro, but don't go anywhere. If you just hang for a few minutes backstage when the outro is over, we'll be done live.
Okay, I'm going to step off for 2 seconds, but thank you all. Thank you, everybody, so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Please enjoy our outro, and we'll see you next Saturday.